Hi everyone, I'm Clayton Evans, and I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about teachers in America. And when I'm talking about teachers, public school teachers, I'm talking primarily kindergarten through high school. So with that, I think I'll begin. So Jonathan Dearman was the educator the American public dreams about. He was a teacher at Leadership High School. It's a charter in inner city San Francisco, known for progressive teaching practices and student achievement well above city, state, and national averages. Dearman's classes were the ones every kid in the school feared. But he was also the teacher everyone wanted to impress. His challenging course load pushed his students to grow and to internalize a standard of excellence that they could apply to future academic settings and for the rest of their lives. Outside of his work in the class, he was a role model for the leadership community. A strong African-American male, he took on the role of a surrogate father figure for a lot of the troubled youth who came within leadership's walls. He was known for his dedication to his students, his love, and his ability to inspire everyone around him. He was a truly effective educator, he loved his job, and he was damn good at it. Unfortunately, 4 years into his short teaching career, he quit and became a real estate agent. He loved what he did. He was a very effective teacher, but it took too large of a toll on him. In his 4-year teaching career, he accumulated $15,000 in credit card debt, paying for his family for living in the city, and paying out of pocket for classroom expenses. He consistently worked 70 to 80-hour weeks to meet his own standard of success. And with that, he never felt he was truly effective. A diabetic, he really needed to regulate his insulin levels and see how much he was eating throughout the day. And he worked himself into the hospital on several occasions because he was so tuned into the needs of his students and the demands of his job that he forgot self-care. He loved his work. He was a great teacher, but it took too large of a toll on him. And for the sake of his health and the well-being of his family, he had to leave. He makes $40,000 in 2 months as a real estate agent. It took him 1 year to make the same amount as an American high school public teacher. So I'm interested in why this disconnection exists. Jonathan Dearman is a very tragic story, one I find particularly poignant. But he's a small example of a much larger problem, that is the disconnection between the service that teachers pay to society and what they're paid in return. So I want to explore this problem. First, I want to take a look at exactly what America expects from public school teachers in educating the youth and members of contributing society. Then, take a look at some of the harsh realities of how teachers are paid in return for their service and see that it is a rather unsustainable profession. And finally, try to explore some ideas as to why teachers are continually undervalued in American society. So, what is it that we expect from great school teachers? First thing that comes to mind when we ask what does a teacher need to be able to do is they better know a lot about a lot. If someone's going to teach me something, I hope they know it for themselves in the first place. And we find this is certainly the case of American educators. Over 98% hold at least a bachelor's degree, and increasing numbers of districts, state and local, are requiring master's credentials as well. However, it's important to distinguish between having knowledge and being able to teach. I think on this campus we certainly understand that brilliant people aren't always able to convey that. Teachers have to have that skill. The joy, challenge, and reward of the teaching career comes from helping others learn what you know. Most importantly, teachers have to instill in their learners a deep love of learning in and of itself. The greatest thing a teacher must do is get their pupil to understand that learning is a lifelong process that reaps benefits well beyond graduation. There's a great deal of work within the realm of educational theory and research on how teachers can accomplish these goals. The work of this man, Jerome Bruner, focuses on the ideas of structure and transfer as the pillars of an effective curriculum. Structure deals with the underlying meaning in a discipline. So for example, in math, the use of logical progressions and recognition of patterns to find truth. Or in science, experimentation and observation to come to some conclusions about nature. Once students understand the structure, deep meaning of a topic, they have a framework to fit discrete bits of knowledge and information in a meaningful and memorable way, and then can transfer this knowledge to new academic settings and completely new informational experiences. John Dewey is another important figure in the realm of educational theory. Can't talk about education without talking about this man. And his work, Experience in Education. And he's so focused on what the ideal classroom is like, a dialect between the students and the teacher, so nothing like this right now. And also connecting the learning to students' personal lives and their experiences. Both Bruner and Dewey also recognize the importance of student engagement. So nobody will learn anything in a room when they don't want to be there, they aren't engaged in the learning. That's where student experience is so important, and getting learners to want to learn is the first step for an effective curriculum. So with just a brief glance at some educational theory, we begin to see exactly what makes teachers' lives so difficult, or their jobs so difficult. They have to develop and implement effective curricula that give deep understandings and transferable knowledge, all while engaging a variety of student learners. Give an increasing population of students with varying demographics, and this is a very difficult task. Add lack of administrative support, poor resources, and the pressure of standardized testing, and there are lots of obstacles for teachers fulfilling the duty. And in return, they're just not paid very well. The average teacher salary in 2011 to 2012 was $55,000 a year. Here's a chart comparing that to comparable professions, or jobs that require similar levels of education. There's a 20% discrepancy consistently throughout years from 2002. This trend continues until today. Along with being underpaid, teachers are overworked and in situations where they're under-resourced, and there are difficult barriers to them implementing their curricula. And all this adds up. 33% of teachers leave the field of education within the first 3 years of joining. Wait 5 years, that number jumps to 46%. That's an outrageous turnover rate. So why does this exist? Well, first of all, it's a historical trend. Through most of the 20th century, teachers in this country were primarily female who were not the primary source of income for their households. So low wages were understandable. Obviously, that has changed a while. It's changed since then. There's also a long-standing belief that the intrinsic rewards of an educational career should compensate for low wages. Yeah, I know. Here we see a connection to the starving artist, so an individual who sacrifices out of the pursuit of a meaningful career. Hans Abing, a modern-day economist and artist, writes about a sort of psychic income, or the non-monetary benefits that people who pursue such careers, like teachers and artists, are supposed to compensate their low wages with. Unfortunately, as seen by the story of Jonathan Dearman, the ridiculously high teacher turnover rate, whatever non-monetary benefits teachers most certainly do get from their career is not enough to make the profession sustainable. Finally, beyond personal experience, the public's ideas about teachers come from portrayal of teachers in the media. In movies, inspirational teacher films such as Freedom Writers, Dead Poets Society, even School of Rock. And what are the teachers we see in these movies? They're superheroes. They transform their students' lives using very little pedagogical tools almost instantaneously, and oftentimes while their own lives are crumbling on the sides. They're highly effective and also highly self-sacrificing. And these dramatized and unrealistic expectations are then applied to real teachers. So public notions of the profession are unrealistic. So to conclude, teachers have a difficult and important job. I hardly need to tell any of you that. But they need to develop and implement an effective curriculum that gives deep understandings and transferable knowledge, all while hopefully instilling the love of learning to their pupils. And in return, they really aren't paid that much. The salary and the conditions of the teaching profession are not such that they retain highly qualified individuals who can pursue other options such as CS at Stanford or other comparable professions, nor are they enough to retain the teachers who do enter the field, as shown by the high teacher turnover rate. And they're expected to suck it up and do it anyway. So, starving artists are allowed to enter this realm of mythological significance because they pursue a field and self-sacrifice for the pursuit of the meaning through their artwork. Teachers are similarly expected to enter this realm of highly effective teaching while also being highly self-sacrificial. However, we see that's not sustainable. And until expectations for teachers become grounded in what real teachers do and what real teachers should earn, the continuous undervaluing of the teaching profession in society will continue.